this is kind of what democracy is all about, though. A hearing like that, you are our elected representatives asking questions. And I was surprised at how well you can ask our legislative office and put in a request and this, that, and the other thing. He was skirting his responsibility, I thought, right then and there. Was he?
Yeah, no, because we've asked him, here's a great example. We've asked him for months, what kind of interaction have you had with, if any, have you had with Fani Willis, Alvin Bragg? What has been the communication with the Justice Department and those officials? We've asked for months for that information, and he says, I don't know if there's any communication that takes place. Well, if you don't know, then just tell us that, or give us the documents so we can find out what kind of communications may in fact have happened. I thought that was, I think, a big takeaway from today's hearing. And then, of course, I asked him specifically about Jack Smith mishandling the documents, the very documents he's charging President Trump with mishandling, changed the order of the documents that he seized in that raid of Mar-a-Lago. And he says, well, that's disputed. And I'm like, no, it's not. Jack Smith had to file it with the court. It's in the court filing. And this is one of the reasons why the judge down there in Miami has said, time out. Time out on this case. We're taking our time here because of all the screw-ups we've seen from Jack Smith in this political prosecution.
How about this? He seemed to be saying, like, criticizing the Justice Department was dangerous. I found this rather sinister. Like, they're getting at trying to stifle free speech. Nobody should be threatened. That's already against the law. But we're allowed to criticize the DOJ. We're allowed to say things on Facebook and Twitter about the FBI. And I think he was getting at somehow we're not allowed to do that.
Yeah. We'll never forget what Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson said about 6 weeks ago in this landmark case in front of the Supreme Court on government pressuring big tech to censor conservative speech. She said to the counsel from the state of Louisiana who was arguing for the defendants here, she was saying, Counselor, you've got the First Amendment hamstringing the government. And I'm sitting there thinking, that's the whole point. And that's in essence what Merrick Garland is saying here. You can't criticize the justice. No. This is America. This is where you're supposed to criticize your government. And it's a thing called the First Amendment. This is one of the things that scares me more than anything else, because every liberty we enjoy as Americans under the First Amendment has been assaulted by the Biden administration and by the left. This is a scary thing going here, and we're seeing it now in this whole lawfare, and of course in the argument that you get from Ketanji Brown Jackson in the Supreme Court.
And there is a time and a place for politics. I mean, the way they hide behind the career officials at the DOJ, right? Somehow they are better beyond, political accountability. We're allowed to ask these questions. Overall, what happens next? I mean, this guy continues to evade, obstruct. Where's this going?
Well, we're putting together legislation specifically relative to President Trump, legislation that would defund any federal funds going to Alvin Bragg, any federal funds going to Fani Willis. No more of that. If you're getting grant dollars, we want to cut that off. And frankly, we want to say if you're a special counsel at the federal level who wasn't confirmed by the United States Senate, you should not get funded either. That would cover this Jack Smith political prosecution. So this is legislation we think makes sense. And then we also want to, as part of this package, we want a bill that we passed out of the Judiciary Committee almost a year ago, which would say any former president or vice president who's been charged by one of these rogue state and district prosecutors, they can move to have that case taken to federal court. That would have stopped this problem with President Trump. We passed it out of the committee a year ago. I think we're going to get it on the floor and finally get it through the House.